High in the forests of South and Southeast Asia, a lizard waits on the trunk of a tree. It is small, light, and almost perfectly still. Below it lies open air, a gap between trees several meters wide. For most reptiles, crossing that gap would be a risky journey, exposed to predators and costly in energy. But this lizard doesn't climb down. Instead, it steps back, spreads a pair of vivid membranes from its sides, and launches itself into the air, steering, braking, and landing with precision on a neighboring trunk. This is not powered flight. The lizard does not flap or generate lift on its own. It glides. These are the flying dragons of the genus Draco. Despite the name, they haven't evolved flight by becoming birds, bats, or anything remotely like them. They've done it by pushing the reptilian body plan to its limits. If you'd like to learn more, check out the document in the description with research papers and image credits. Flying dragons are in the family Agamidae. Agamids are found throughout Africa, Australia, and Asia. And if you're familiar with the family at all, you're probably thinking of animals like the bearded dragons of Australia or the agamas of Africa. These are lizards of open space. They live in deserts, scrub, and grasslands. Robust, often ground-dwelling animals built for basking, sprinting, and display. That image isn't wrong, but it's not the whole story. As we move into the forests of South and Southeast Asia, the picture begins to change. Here, among the towering trees, many agamids have become increasingly arboreal, slimmer, more cryptic, and more comfortable on vertical trunks and narrow branches. Even so, they remain stubbornly clinging to surfaces. All of them, that is, except for the flying dragons of Draco. There are more than 40 recognized species in the genus Draco, spread from India and southern China through Southeast Asia and into Indonesia. They differ in color, size, and display patterns. Some with warm-toned orange or red gliding membranes, others with cooler blues or yellows. But biologically, they are all solving the same problem in almost exactly the same way. All Draco lizards are highly arboreal. They live almost entirely in the forest canopy, descending to the ground only rarely. Their world is vertical, fragmented, and three-dimensional, a maze of trunks, branches, and open air. And in that environment, moving efficiently between trees is not optional. It is the difference between feeding, escaping predators, finding mates, or failing to do any of those things. So rather than cataloguing the many species of Draco, a feat that would take a much longer video than this one, it makes more sense to treat them as a single evolutionary experiment repeated across many forests. Arboreal animals face a fundamental challenge. Climbing is slow, descending is dangerous, and the ground is often the worst place to be. Many mammals solve this by gliding. Flying squirrels, colugos, and sugar gliders all use membranes stretched between their limbs to travel from tree to tree. Birds and bats go further, evolving powered flight. But reptiles are constrained in different ways. Their limbs are not easily transformed into wings, and their metabolism does not lend itself to sustained flapping flight. That is not to say flight is impossible for reptiles. Pterosaurs were famously flying reptiles, but they had several advantages over modern lizards. Most importantly, their metabolism. They were likely warm-blooded, more similar in this respect to modern birds than to any living reptile. Draco is not the only gliding reptile alive today, but it is the only one to make use of membranes. But it does so in a drastically different way to any mammal. Instead of turning its arms into wings, it uses its ribs. At first glance, a flying dragon looks unremarkable, until it spreads its patagium. The patagium of Draco is sometimes loosely described as a wing, but it is not a true wing in the biological sense. It is not a modified limb, and it cannot generate powered flight. Instead, it is a rib-supported membrane. A series of elongated ribs extend from the body, supporting a thin sheet of skin and creating a broad, curved, aerodynamic surface on each side. This is not a passive structure. All reptiles have muscles among their ribs to help control breathing, but in the flying dragons, these have become highly specialized, allowing the lizard to extend, retract, and subtly adjust the shape of the patagium in mid-air. Crucially, the forelimbs are not attached to the membrane at all. Instead, during a glide, the lizard reaches its arms back to grip the leading edge of the membrane, forming a temporary, controllable aerofoil. As it approaches its landing site, the forelimbs release the membrane and swing forward, ready to absorb impact and cling to the bark. No other living gliding vertebrate uses this system. It is a solution that relies entirely on structures reptiles already possess: ribs, skin, and muscle, rearranged into something new. Gliding in flying dragons is not a matter of leaping and hoping for the best. Once airborne, the lizard maintains a stable glide posture, with the patagium fully extended, held in its foreclaws to help stabilize the membrane. To improve lift, the flying dragon arches its body, creating more curvature in the membranes, allowing them to generate more lift. This, along with the movement of its specialized muscles, allows Draco species to control their glide angle, direction, and speed, as well as the timing of their descent. This is remarkable control for an animal that cannot fly and is only propelled by a small jump. Rather than dropping steeply, most glides follow a shallow, controlled trajectory, trading height for distance in a predictable way. In good conditions, they can reach gliding speeds of around 18 to 25 kilometers per hour, and some species will routinely glide 20 meters or more and can do so repeatedly throughout the day. Steering is achieved through asymmetrical control of the patagium. By slightly altering the tension or extension on one side of the body, the lizard can yaw and bank toward its target. But the most distinctive part of the glide happens at the very end. As the animal approaches its landing site, usually a vertical trunk of another tree, the forelimbs release the leading edge of the patagium. In a single, fluid motion, the arms reach forward, claws extended, ready to land. The patagium collapses instantly against the body, removing drag and allowing the lizard to cling securely to the surface. This sequence is fast, repeatable, and precise, a necessary adaptation in a dense forest where a missed landing can mean a fall of many meters. Gliding is not just a dramatic way to move, it is an efficient one. Climbing down and up a tree is slow and energetically costly. It also exposes the animal to predators on the forest floor. By gliding instead, Draco conserves energy, reduces time spent vulnerable, and moves directly through its habitat rather than around it. In this sense, gliding is not an alternative strategy to climbing. It is a replacement for it. The air between trees becomes usable space. The patagium is not just a gliding tool, it is also a visual signal. Among flying dragons, colour and pattern vary widely between species and even between individuals. Some display vivid orange membranes, others brilliant blues, yellows, or deep reds, colours that stand out sharply against the muted browns and greens of the forest canopy. Males use the patagium to communicate. By fully extending it, they signal territorial ownership and advertise fitness to rivals and potential mates. The display is often combined with head bobbing or push-up movements, increasing visibility and emphasizing size and strength. Like many other lizards, anoles and iguanas to name just a few, flying dragons do also possess a true dewlap. This is a flap of skin at the throat, typically brightly coloured, that can be expanded for close-range signalling. In Draco, the patagium has not replaced this structure. Instead, it acts as a second, additional display surface, expanding the visual language of these lizards and allowing signals to be broadcast across the canopy. Females are less colourful, but can still use subtle patterns to signal species identity or reproductive state. In a forest where sightlines are broken by branches and foliage, a fully unfilled patagium is an effective way to communicate across several meters without leaving the safety of the tree trunk. Importantly, the patagium is multifunctional. The same rib-supported membranes that control the glide also serve in display. By adjusting tension, angle, and extent, the lizard can exaggerate or dampen the visual signal as needed. This dual use reflects an elegant evolutionary solution, a structure that supports both locomotion and communication without compromising either. In some species, patagium patterns are species-specific. In others, they vary geographically. This diversity suggests that sexual selection and social interaction have shaped their appearance alongside the mechanical demands of gliding. Ultimately, the flying dragon's patagium is not a wing, and not a dewlap, but something uniquely its own, a dynamic signalling and gliding surface born from demands of life in a vertical fragmented forest world. Flying dragons are highly territorial. Males defend their section of the forest, sometimes a single tree, sometimes several, using both physical presence and visual signals to maintain their space. The patagium plays a key role in these interactions. A male confronting a rival will often glide into view, fully extending his brightly coloured membrane to appear larger and more intimidating. Displays may be combined with head bobbing, push-ups, and deliberate movements across the trunk, creating a visual performance that communicates strength without direct physical contact. A male without a territory will glide through the forest, searching for an area unguarded by rivals. This is so common that, in experiments, once a dominant male was removed, his territory would be claimed by another within hours. Gliding also allows males to patrol and reinforce boundaries efficiently. By moving through the air between trees, a lizard can inspect its territory and respond quickly to intruders, without the time and energy cost, or danger, of descending to the forest floor. Rival males generally avoid direct combat when these signals are clear. In many cases, a well-executed display is enough to assert dominance. Physical fights do occur, but they are risky. A fall could be fatal in the vertical forest environment. The combination of display and controlled gliding reduces these risks, allowing the lizards to negotiate space safely and efficiently. Females are less overtly aggressive, but still use gliding and displays to move safely and signal presence, particularly during courtship or when navigating shared territories. In this way, the patagium and gliding are not just adaptations for movement, they are social tools. The lizard's ability to move swiftly and communicate visually in 3 dimensions shapes their social hierarchy, mating opportunities, and survival in the complex canopy environment. We have talked extensively about gliding and life in the treetops, but that raises the question, do flying dragons ever need to descend all the way to the forest floor? The answer is yes, but usually only females, and usually only for one reason: reproduction. Females leave the safety of the trees to lay their eggs in the soil. Egg laying is a delicate operation. Females dig small burrows, deposit a clutch of up to 5 eggs, and then carefully covers them. She guards her clutch for a day before returning to the forest canopy. After that, the eggs, and the hatchlings that emerge, are left to fend for themselves. But why bury their eggs at all? Nesting in the soil provides several advantages. It regulates temperature, buffering the eggs against fluctuations and creating a more stable environment. Soil also retains moisture better than exposed surfaces, preventing desiccation. Finally, well-hidden burrows lower the chances of eggs getting eaten by ants, snakes, or other predators. These benefits outweigh the risks, even for a species adapted to aerial life. It is a rare intersection of necessity and danger, a moment where reproductive success requires leaving the safety of a niche perfected over millions of years. Ground visits are therefore brief and purposeful. Flying dragons minimize time spent on the ground. A place where their greatest advantage, their ability to glide, is rendered useless. Flying dragons depend entirely on the forest canopy for survival. Every aspect of their life, gliding, foraging, displaying, and avoiding predators, is tied to a continuous vertical environment. Even brief gaps in habitat or loss of trees can disrupt movement, social interactions, and access to resources. Knowing that, it should come as no surprise that deforestation is the primary threat. Across Southeast Asia, forests are being cleared for agriculture, logging, and urban development. Fragmented landscapes reduce the distance flying dragons can safely glide and isolate populations, increasing competition and vulnerability to predators. The need to descend to the ground for egg laying adds another risk. In degraded or heavily disturbed forests, the soil may be compacted, exposed, or contaminated, making successful nesting more difficult and reducing reproductive success. Some species appear adaptable to secondary forests or plantations, provided that trees are sufficiently dense to allow gliding. However, continuous old-growth canopy remains crucial for most populations. Conservation efforts for flying dragons therefore depend on preserving large, connected tracts of forest. Protecting their habitat ensures that the canopy remains usable space for gliding, for signaling, and for reproduction, and that this unique genus can continue its extraordinary aerial lifestyle. Having seen how the flying dragons of Draco live and move through the forest canopy, it is worth stepping back and asking a broader question. How often have reptiles developed gliding? The answer is more than once, but rarely in the same way. Across both the modern and prehistoric world, gliding has evolved multiple times in reptiles facing the same fundamental challenge: how to move efficiently through a vertical, fragmented environment. One living example is the flying snakes in Chrysopelia. Unlike the flying dragons, these snakes have no membranes or extended ribs. Instead, they launch themselves from trees and flatten their bodies mid-air, forming a concave, ribbon-like shape that generates lift. By undulating while airborne, they can steer their descent and travel surprisingly long distances, all without any specialized wings. Other modern lizards have taken a different approach. Flying geckos, such as those in the genus Tychozoon, possess flaps of skin along their bodies, limbs, and tails. These do not form true gliding membranes, but they increase surface area, slow descent, and improve control during falls, a solution that prioritizes stability over distance. In the deep past, reptiles explored even more radical designs. Permian gliders, like Coelurosaurus and Vigeltosaurus, evolved long, rod-like structures extending from their bodies, supporting broad membranes. These supports were not ribs, but entirely new skeletal elements, an evolutionary experiment unlike anything seen today. Later, in the Cretaceous, similar experiments emerged. Reptiles such as Xianglong independently evolved gliding membranes supported by their elongated ribs, a solution strikingly similar to that of modern flying dragons. What unites all of these animals is not their anatomy, but their constraints. None evolved powered flight. Instead, each found a way to turn gravity from an enemy into an ally, trading height for distance and control. In this context, the flying dragons stand out not because they glide, but because of how they do it. By transforming ribs, structures already essential for breathing, into controllable aerofoils, they achieved a level of integration between locomotion, signaling, and behavior unmatched by any other gliding reptile. The flying dragons of Draco are remarkable not just for the way they move, but for how they live. Every aspect of their biology and behavior, from elongated ribs to gliding precision, colorful displays, and territory strategies, is shaped by life in the high canopy. They glide not to fly, but to make the air between trees usable, turning gaps in open space into pathways for feeding, escaping, and communicating. The same structures that carry them through the air also broadcast their presence to rivals and potential mates, combining movement and signaling in a single evolutionary solution. In the end, the story of flying dragons is a story of adaptation, ingenuity, and fragility. A small lizard, confined by the laws of physics and the limitations of a reptilian body, has found a way to navigate its three-dimensional world with unmatched precision. I hope you enjoyed this journey into the flying dragons. If this video sparked your curiosity, don't let it stop here. Share it, talk about it, and keep learning. There's still so much to discover about the world's rare and remarkable species. And the more we understand, the better our chances of protecting them. Thanks for watching.